Just 3 months ago, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had gone to the negotiating table with Donald Trump, hoping to discuss a post-Brexit trade deal between the US and the UK. Then, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn exposed the dossier, saying that Johnson had put the NHS on the table during the chat and that Trump was keen to get his hands on the British National Health Service. 3 months on, the NHS saved Johnson's life. I'm Leila Faramaizi and this is The Outbreak. On this episode, we'll be taking a look at just how vital the NHS has been to the UK. And in spite of over 10,000 deaths recorded in British hospitals from COVID-19, the staff are still on the front line, tackling the biggest crisis since World War II and the biggest crisis before the EU says no deal to the Brits. So stay right where you are, and let's first take a look at the NHS just months before the COVID-19 outbreak hit the shores of the UK.
It was only a few months ago that the world was watching the Chinese deal with the COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan, and it seemed that for the rest, it was very much business as usual. The UK, with the Brexit day finally upon them, saw Boris Johnson preparing for a post-Brexit Britain and hoping that he could strike a trade deal to save what was left of the British dream. Deep in the back of the mind of Johnson was the accepted fact that the EU would tear the Brits to pieces when it came to trade negotiations. So he had no choice but to turn to the US, and in doing so, knew that a trade deal with Trump wouldn't come for free.
I like Boris Johnson, I always have. He's a different kind of a guy, but they say I'm a different kind of a guy too. We get along well. I think we'll have a very good relationship.
It was the exposure of a file by then Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn that revealed the truth behind the terms and conditions of a deal with the devil. Boris had to put the NHS on the table, and was something that Trump wanted more than anything.
We've now got evidence that under Boris Johnson, the NHS is on the table and will be up for sale. He tried to cover it up in his secret agenda, but today it's been exposed. Now we know the truth. When Johnson says, "Get Brexit done," it's a fraud on the British people.
It appears then that Boris has sold out the so-called pride of Britain, the national institution that had been the envy of so many. Yet, prior to the current situation, the NHS was nothing more than a crumbling, debt-ridden, under-resourced and inefficient burden on the UK economy. Today, not much has changed, but the frontline staff have now shown themselves to be the true asset of the NHS, and hence reinstated the service as the darling of Britain.
It appears that as the virus takes more lives across the planet, we are no closer to containing or eliminating COVID-19. And it appears that even the most advanced countries have been unable to deal with the spread. Joining me here in the studio today is Dr. Bob Gill, a general practitioner, NHS campaigner, and also the producer of the documentary film, The Great NHS Heist, from London. Welcome to the show. First question, the virus, COVID-19, seems to have become more potent as it moved from east to west. Was the NHS prepared for the devastating outcome?
So the NHS was definitely not very well prepared. We've had 10 years of funding cuts to the NHS. There were 100,000 vacancies, staff vacancies, 40,000 doctors, 10,000 nurses. There was a report and an exercise performed in 2016 called Exercise Cygnus, which was to test NHS preparedness for a pandemic, and none of the recommendations were implemented. So we didn't have adequate staffing, preparations weren't undertaken, and a survey of NHS staff, of NHS doctors, revealed only 1% of doctors thought that the NHS was ready for the pandemic. So we were definitely not prepared, and the NHS and government has been very slow to react.
And do you think they can learn anything from all this?
There are definitely lessons to be learned. The government needs to properly fund the NHS, to properly, adequately make sure that there are enough beds and enough staff, and they have to abandon their sort of stealth privatisation and austerity that they've imposed on the whole population and on the NHS as well.
Thank you, Dr. Gill. Talk to you again later on the show. Next up, we take a look at how the British have responded to the NHS effort to control the virus, including an amazing feat of charity by 99-year-old war veteran Captain Tom Moore.
When Boris promised the NHS a staggering £350 million per week if they voted to leave the EU, it seemed that the notion was just what was needed to fix the broken and underfunded NHS, and made Boris sound like a hero. Obviously, those figures were soon exposed to be a lie, and Boris seemed to just brush the promise under the table, for in reality, he had used the story to both get Brexit voted through in the referendum and ultimately lead him to the door of number 10.
This One Nation Conservative government will massively increase our investment in the NHS, the health service that represents the very best of our country, with this single beautiful idea that whoever we are, rich, poor, young, old, the NHS is there for us when we are sick, and every day that service performs miracles.
But since this lie was exposed, a lot has happened. The NHS is now dealing with the biggest crisis it's ever faced, as the figures surpass the tens of thousands of dead, and the service struggles not only to treat the numerous patients that are dying or sick, but more worryingly, the frontline staff have no PPE and are taking desperate measures to obtain it. The public have taken their own measures to help the NHS, from regular shows of appreciation to the notion of raising money. 99-year-old war veteran Captain Tom Moore created a crowdfunding page that has raised multiple millions of pounds for the NHS, in fact in the region of £15 million, to buy the equipment that they need. The figure, that's constantly rising, has seen calls by the public to have Moore knighted for his efforts, whilst at the same time he's put the British government to shame. So poorly have the Tory government handled the COVID-19 outbreak that the NHS have turned to the Amazon wishlist scheme in order to get the public to donate PPE equipment to them, again raising the question as to what exactly the British government are doing.
Joining me back in the studio is Dr. Gill from London. Thanks for coming back to the show. Next question. NHS frontline staff, the most exposed group to the virus due to the nature of their work. What is the NHS and government, both, what are they doing to protect these people? Do they not deserve better?
So protection for NHS workers is vital. They are exposed to high viral loads, which makes them very much more prone to be getting infected and also passing that infection on to other patients and also their families and becoming sick themselves. So the level of protection was woefully inadequate. We still hear to date, 2-3 months down the line, that staff are doing close contact with patients who are known to be infected without adequate masks and other protective gear. So currently the problem still exists and staff are having to make either their own arrangements or even ask for protective gear from schools and other places and buy their own. So this is a woefully inadequate situation and the staff have been put in harm's way.
How do you see the future of the NHS after the pandemic?
I'm hoping the public will once again realize how important it is to have a strong health service. And I'm hoping that realization will also alert them to the threat that the NHS has been under this government, certainly over the last 10 years and even longer, because there's been a program of stealth privatization. And I would urge the public and the professionals to stand and fight for an improved NHS, which is properly funded, publicly provided and publicly delivered in the interests of the population and not to be used as a cash cow for private corporations.
Thank you, Dr. Bob Gill. Great having you on the show. Let's switch over to what's being discussed on social media concerning the NHS. We know that they've been highly commended by the public, so what are the people saying about the NHS frontline staff online? First up, the British public are quite right to raise the issue of the NHS having to turn to charity in order to obtain PPE equipment and other basic necessities. What's the government doing, asks one Twitter user, who states they should hang their heads in shame. Boris promised £350 million a week to the NHS after Brexit, and this turned out to be a lie, yet people have still not forgotten this huge porker from the PM. And finally, Captain Tom Moore. This is a happier matter. The British public have recognized Captain Tom Moore, the 99-year-old man who raised money by walking 100 lengths of his garden. He's raised millions and put the UK government to shame in the process. Let's now take a look at what may happen to the NHS once the COVID-19 outbreak winds down and things get back to normal. Can Boris ever forget the NHS saved his life, or will he still give Trump the deal he wants?
So what does the future hold for the NHS? With emotions currently running high in the UK for the service, it seems that as things stand, the NHS is likely to be untouchable. Or is it? The EU, who are currently dealing with their own COVID-19 issues, have repeatedly stated that the negotiations that are due to take place before the 31st of December will do no favours to the UK, and hence leave the Brits back at square one when the pandemic finally subsides. This will mean that the Prime Minister will have to either succumb to the clearly advantageous to the EU deals that Brussels sets, or he has to seek elsewhere, reopening the door to Trump in order to salvage some kind of trade deal that will stop the British sinking altogether. Furthermore, Boris promised the NHS jobs will be handed back to the British workers after Brexit. But with 1 in 4 doctors in the UK trained abroad, and 1 in 6 nurses also, how can the NHS survive without foreigners? In fact, Johnson himself was treated by foreign health workers whilst in ICU.
They're Jenny from New Zealand, in Invercargill on the South Island to be exact, and Luis from Portugal, near Porto.
One thing that's very clear is that the UK seriously need to reconsider what their future will hold, with both the impact on the economy from the COVID-19 virus and the Brexit disaster, which has seen multiple retail outlets, farms and basic services collapse, mean that the NHS truly must be biting its nails, as it seems their future is about to flatline.
The UK, like many nations, has struggled to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 virus. Yet, on top of the woes it has brought, the UK have multiple other issues to deal with on top of the outbreak, and none more so demanding than Brexit. Yet, it seems that the people of the UK have stood up to the pandemic and put their government to shame, not only by supporting the NHS morally, but also having been forced to support them financially. Yet, they fail to see Boris as the man who essentially let the nation down. I've been Leila Faromarzi. Join me again soon for another edition of The Outbreak. And on behalf of myself and the whole team here, look after yourselves and each other.